My name is Natasha Phipps with WealthShare and Phipps Real Estate Group here in Calgary, Alberta. And today I'm joined by Ryan Firkser of Atlas One. Hopefully I said that right, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. You're one of few people that's gotten it right.
Okay, good. So Ryan is with Atlas One, and Atlas One is an exempt market dealer here in Canada. They are working with WealthShare as our exempt market dealer, and we wanted to bring them on today for a few different reasons. One is we do have a lot of investors who are curious how self-directing registered funds work and why that's important, but then also what are the tangible actual steps to go through if you wanted to self-direct your registered funds. So Ryan is going to be the main presenter here today. This will be recorded as well, and if you do have questions, just pop them in the chat and hopefully we can address those at the end for you as well. Does that sound like a plan, Ryan?
Beautiful. Sounds good. We're good to go.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to make you a co-host, I believe, so then you can share your screen, and then I will remove my spotlight and let you take it away.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, good to go.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, so again, as Natasha mentioned, I know a lot of folks have already taken a look into WealthShare, have met with the team and understand the whole thesis. If not, I know a bunch of members of her team are here on the chat, and we're more than happy to help answer those questions about the actual trust itself. You can feel free to ask those in the chat section, or if there's a Q&A as well, we'll periodically be checking those to make sure we're up to date. What we wanted to demonstrate was sort of how you go about making the investment, which is a bit of a multi-step process. The good news is Atlas One, as what Natasha mentioned, the exempt market dealer, we're here to make that process a lot easier for investors. So for those of you who have ever invested in private investments before, frankly, the process is usually quite cumbersome. It's complicated. There's a number of documents you need to sign and a bunch of regulatory stuff you need to get out of the way. What we've done is we've streamlined that all into one individual platform, and we're going to run through the steps on how to submit investments right now. So we're going to go through a demo of what it looks like to use the platform, how exactly you'll access it, and how to submit with WealthShare, as well as get a bit more information. We'll also take a bit of a debrief and a bit of a divergence rather, and go over how to actually submit with registered funds. So I know a lot of folks as well are looking for either RSP or TFSA investments. We'll be going through that as well, and then that's going to involve one other company that you'll use as your trustee, and we're going to run through that together. So I'm going to share my screen now, just to sort of show everyone what it would look like from your perspective, and I'll go share my screen, and I get to Atlas One. Here we go. Okay, so we'll be sharing a link with everyone, and the link is going to direct you towards the page that we're looking at now. Natasha, as you're the other one on the screen here, can I just confirm that everyone can see the screen here that says WealthShare?
Yes, that looks good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great. So this is going to be what the platform looks like. And again, either a representative from the WealthShare team or Atlas One will share the link to get directly to this page. This is what's called the WealthShare offering page. And it's going to show you a number of pieces of information. First and foremost, it's going to give you a summary of the actual offering. So if you're not too familiar with WealthShare, you can go over this and get all the details. Some high-level highlights relating to any sort of fees you pay, how you're eligible to invest, the investing objectives, and any other parts that are relevant towards the offering. We also include here some high-level tidbits, just to make sure that you're on the same page about the investment. And then as well, there's more documentation that you could go into. So for instance, you can go into the document section and see their declaration of trust. You can see the offering memorandum. If you wanted to get in touch with our team to discuss the investment, you can get it directly from here. So you can schedule a meeting in our calendar. We're more than happy to chat. The point is that you can get all the information you need from the platform itself. And then, of course, if you wanted to talk to our team, which are a team of registered dealing representatives, you could do that and we can discuss with you. An important part about this whole process, not only is Atlas One the platform that you'll be using, we are also registered to speak to investors as to how the investment fits within your portfolio. So whereas it's great to talk to the WealthShare team and they are fantastic at what they do, there's no getting around. There's a bit of bias in their favor to get you on as investors. We're here as a bit of an impartial third party to take a look at your overall portfolio and let you know how we think this may fit in. So for instance, if we think that the risk level is aligned with what you're looking for, if the time horizon makes sense, if you have other investments that may complement this, And of course, if you have any questions about the offering itself, we're the ones that you'll go to. So once you're ready to invest, you'll simply just create an account with Atlas One. You'll click this button that says sign up to invest, and the platform will guide you through the investment process. And that's what we're going to go through right now. So I've actually already created an account. The steps are going to be very similar. So I'm going to press the sign in to invest button. It will ask me again for my email and password. If you don't have an account, again, you can just press sign up and it will run you through it. But we're going to log into the account now. And what this will do is it's actually going to redirect us back to that page for WealthShare. The only difference being, one, that there are some few other sections here that are available. So again, if there are any other documents, we could see a couple more of them were added here that you weren't able to get to before, as well as any videos and updates about the fund. These ones are only available once you log in because there are some privacy and confidentiality rules we do want to follow. And we want to make sure that you're signed in and you've accepted all the terms and conditions before you're able to access all these. But again, if you want to take a look at the offer memorandum, which is the 40 or so page document that runs you through the entire investment, you can download it, take a view. If you don't want to read 40 pages of exhilarating securities rules, then frankly, you can message us and we'll let you know exactly where to find specific parts that you're looking for. So once you're ready to invest, you'll just click this blue invest button, and the platform is going to run you page by page through the different parts of submitting an investment. Now, normally, this is just up to you as an investor. The issuer will send you a 40-page subscription agreement. You have to figure out where you actually have to sign. We're going to do that all page by page to make sure that everything's figured out for you. So the first page here is going to be what's called accreditation and eligibility. As some of you may know, you have to qualify to invest in certain private investments, and this is going to be one of them. So we're going to figure out if you're either an accredited investor or an eligible investor. And what you simply do is you take a look and you see if any of these qualifications match what matches your portfolio. So for instance, if your individual income is over 200,000, or if your joint income is over 300,000, there's also an exemption for financial assets. This would be any sort of investments that you've made, and then total assets. And that's going to include things like equity in your house. If none of these match, then you'll go over to the eligible investor side. And again, it's very similar, just a few lower requirements. For this time, we're just going to say that my income is over 75,000. And again, if you're not sure which one, you can just say, I'm not sure which one applies to me, and we'll give you a full breakdown of what it actually means. So once you've gone through that, you can press the next button, and the next step is going to be deciding how much we're going to invest. So there's no real way to get this wrong. We set it up such that the minimum investment is $1,000. So for instance, if I try to invest $500, it will tell me that it has to be at least 1,000. So no real way to mess this up on the downside. Once we click and let's say we make the investment for $5,000, everything opens up and we can press the next button again.
Ryan,
yeah.
Sorry, just to rewind 1 second. Can you explain why there is eligibility requirements for these types of investments?
Sure, of course. So generally speaking, for private investments, we're going under what's called an offering memorandum exemption. And what that means is you're given an offer memorandum as the investor, which again is a pretty lengthy document outlining the entirety of the business. It includes the investing objectives, any sort of risks, a bit of background about the management team and the process for things like redemptions and subscriptions. And to go through that exemption, our regulators need to know whether an investor qualifies as accredited or eligible. That's for a couple of reasons. One is just in the subscription agreement itself, they want to make sure that you're signing the right parts of it. There's a specific section and certain disclosures that you sign as an eligible investor and certain ones that you sign as an accredited investor. As well, there are regulatory limitations as to how much you're allowed to invest, which relate to if you're eligible or accredited. So as a very general rule, eligible investors are allowed to invest up to $30,000 on a rolling annual basis in these type of offer memorandum exemptions. If you are looking to invest more than $30,000 and you qualify as an eligible investor, that's totally fine. We are actually able to go a bit above that amount, a fair amount actually. What we would need to do is just have a quick call with you. We would run through your portfolio. We would make sure you understand all the risks, and then we would make a recommendation as to how much to invest. By having that call with us, because we are registered, we are actually allowed to increase the investment amount. So another great benefit of going through an exempt market dealer that way. If it is accredited, there virtually isn't an upper limit. Everything is within reason. So, for instance, once the investment's submitted, if we see that you've submitted effectively your entire net worth, we would call you up and say, you know what, let's take a step back. This probably isn't a very strong idea given some of the factors that we're looking at. So credit investors definitely do have a bit more wiggle room, but in either case, we're going to be the third party here to make sure the investment submitted is appropriate for your portfolio.
Thank you.
Perfect. The next section we're going to go over is going to be what's called your profile. This is pretty typical stuff, like you would fill out almost like you're buying a sweater and you're filling in all your info to get everything shipped over. So it's going to be a bit of personal information like your name, your date of birth, some information like a SIN we do need to take for our regulators. One, it helps us make sure we're on side, and then two, once tax season comes around, you'll have that just so investors can receive their documents and have everything processed. Importantly, on this page, and I've already done it, so it will come for any new investors, but there's going to be a little button down at the bottom here that says ID verification. This is another part that we do for you. So what will happen is when you click that button, the platform will ask you to verify your ID, and it's actually going to go through your phone. So it will ask you to have either a driver's license or a passport ready. It will ask you to take a picture, and it will compare it against a picture that you take of yourself, so a selfie, and the platform will actually do the ID verification for you. So again, this is usually a bit more of an involved process where you scan documents and send them back and forth. But frankly, it's not the safest thing to be sending them over email. We'd rather do it through our platform, and that way we can make sure that you as an investor are eligible to invest in the offering.
Hey, Ryan, just had a good question about the eligibility in Atlas One. It was asked, so Atlas One is the platform to invest, yes. The question is, once you are either accredited or eligible with Atlas One, you can invest with other projects on the Atlas One platform, I'd imagine, if the eligibility requirements apply to other investments, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so as in full transparency, we do have other offerings on the platform. Sometimes it's great to sort of mix and match and say we want to do a bit with WealthShare and a bit in other sort of asset classes. Again, we're here to make sure that investors get the proper sort of asset mix. So 100% we can take a look at that as well. There are, of course, limitations. So for instance, if you invest a certain amount with WealthShare, we keep that in mind when suggesting other investments as well to make sure that the portfolio is still well balanced.
That's awesome. That's a huge value add for people booking meetings with you, is they can ask you those types of questions on how best to diversify what they might want to invest in or what they already have. So love that. Thanks.
Exactly. And, on top of that, it is important to note that just from a regulatory perspective, we do have what's called a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that investors are making the best financial decisions. So again, if mixing and matching some offerings makes the most sense and getting a bit more diversification, we're 100% for that. Obviously we want to make sure we're doing right by the WealthShare clients and making sure that everyone is getting the sort of best for their portfolio.
Great.
Beautiful. So once we're done filling out all this information, and again, doing the ID verification, press the next button. And the next section over here is just going to be a bunch of drop downs. And this is, I'd say, probably the longest part of the whole process. It really is just clicking a button, seeing what the question says and answering. It's going to ask a few questions about your financials, about your level of investment experience, if you want to add anyone else to your account. Why we ask this information? This, again, is from a regulatory perspective. So when we go through your investment, it's not as if it gets submitted into some sort of black hole. It gets submitted with Atlas One, we take a look at it, and then we actually compare your investment against a few different things that you've said over here. And this is our sort of way of making sure that it's a strong investment for you. So for instance, if you said that this is the first time you're starting to save and you're looking for a very safe, very short-term investment, we would say, you know what, this probably isn't the best idea for you, or at very least, let's talk about this. And we want to make sure that you're aware of the risks involved. Again, if for instance, you have very significant savings on the other side, and this is a very small investment for you, we could certainly recommend in saying, once you become comfortable with the WealthShare team, we can take a look to increasing the amount. Again, just making sure that it's in line exactly what you as the investor are looking for. This also gives us a good opportunity to sort of better understand your portfolio without going to a full sort of deep dive, and usually gives us a pretty good way to understand if there's anything that we should discuss with an investor to sort of protect you as well. So once we've run through all of these, there's a bunch of yes or no questions. We'll click the next button. And then we're coming to the end here, and this is going to be the payment section. So again, as we mentioned before, the investments can be done either as a non-registered investment, so just as cash, or as a registered investment, for instance, through an RSP or a TFSA. For a non-registered investment, simply just click if you want to pay via EFT or a bill payment or a wire transfer. We'll give you all the instructions for those, and we'll make sure that you're sending it to the right account. That's pretty easy. When it comes to registered accounts, so the registered investment with WealthShare are being facilitated by another company, one of two companies. It's either going to be Odyssey Trust Company or I believe Western Pacific. For those that don't have an account with Odyssey Trust Company, not to worry at all. We can help out get one set up. It's a third-party company that just processes registered investments. So we'll make sure your account's all created. We'll get the fund transfer in. If you're sending in from another institution, it usually takes a while to get the funds relinquished, as we found out, but we'll certainly help out with that and make it certainly make some calls to make sure that the funds are being transferred in a timely manner. And then we can make sure that everything's submitted properly on your side.
You just explain why that trust company is needed between the two. Like, if this is your first time doing this, there's a lot of parties and groups involved. So just if you could spend a little bit more time on that, why do we need Odyssey or Western Pacific?
Yeah, sure. So the trust company is the sort of key to making this investment registered eligible and really making it a very tax efficient investment overall. The intent of that being, so far as you can go through a trust company and they're the sort of, again, key holders that say this investment can be registered eligible. They can give a green light, and then investors can submit the investment with them. As Natasha mentioned, there are, when you start involving a trust company, there are a number of moving parts, and it can become a bit overwhelming for investors. And that's why we suggest first coming to Atlas One, getting your investment submitted, and then we can help out with the trust company right after. Overall, they're also going to be the ones that will help out with distributions for you. So if you ever get a capital gains distribution or just a regular dividend, it will go directly through that trust company. So there will be no going back and forth with your bank account and trying to figure out how to reinvest. They'll handle everything like that for you.
One thing to add is if your money is sitting with another trust company, like Olympia Trust is commonly used, it would need to be transferred. So WealthShare had to get approved with these trust companies and went through their vetting process to make sure that we are, doing everything correctly and are a investment that would work for registered funds. So if you have your money sitting with another trust company, like most commonly Olympia Trust, it would need to be transferred into Odyssey or Western Pacific. And Odyssey is offering a free setup account, so you wouldn't have your first setup payment like you probably had at Olympia for those that do transfer over, just to make it a little bit easier. So a little bit of a nice incentive by Odyssey.
Yeah, no, they've definitely made it a lot just economically easier for investors. We work directly with Odyssey as well, so we have direct contacts there. We can track all the transfers, all the account creation and the investments, and make sure that everything's being processed properly. So if you don't have an Odyssey account, again, totally fine. If you already have one, you can just link it right here. So you'll press the link a registered account button. You'll check off Odyssey, so we support a few of them here. For account type, you'll pick whichever one applies to you, and then you'll just fill in your account number, and a DocuSign will actually pop up to make sure that you have all the right signatures such that we can review your account, make sure that everything's all set up properly. I actually already have a TFSA here with Odyssey set up, so we're going to just say that we're going with that one. We'll press the next button. And then the last part here for making decisions is going to be how you want those distributions to be made. So whenever WealthShare gives you a distribution, you can either have it sent back to your bank account, or in this example, sent back to your TFSA to invest elsewhere, or you can pick a DRIP option. And this stands for Dividend Reinvestment Program. What that means is you will have any shares that you received reinvested back into the fund. It really does help out with compounding your investment, as any income you get is reinvested automatically. It is important to note that, if you're looking to take out cash whenever distributions happen, cash makes a bit more sense. Otherwise, if you're treating this as more of a long-term investment, the drip option certainly helps out with having funds reinvested and having your returns really start to compound and work for you. So once you're done with all that, you can press the submit and sign button. And what's going to happen is it will take all the information that you filled out throughout all these steps, and it will actually start getting that subscription agreement signed for you. So again, instead of having to print it out and figure out which section to go through, what it's doing right now is filling in all the information, the exact fields it needs to go into, and then it's going to ask you to sign exactly where you need to. So no need to figure out where to sign. It does differ a tiny bit between accredited and eligible investors. In either way, you'll be guided through the whole process, so no need to sort of differentiate there. So just to go through, you can press the start button, and it will literally tell us to sign here and a bunch of places because there's a bunch of legalese to go through. Risk acknowledgement. And so again, we do want investors to read through this. So certainly if you want to take a look and see what you're signing, take a step back, don't sign, take a look through, and once you're comfortable, press the sign button. I know these are a bunch of risk acknowledgements, making sure that I understand the investment that I'm making, and then all additional. Once I'm done, press the finish button, and you are completely done. So what will happen from here is it actually goes to myself as Ryan, not the investor, Ryan, the representative from Atlas One. I, as I mentioned, review the entire investment, make sure that everything makes sense. If any questions come up, we'll be sure to reach out to you right away. I countersign as our sort of vote of approval that the investment makes sense for you. And then it goes straight into Natasha for her to sign as well. Once that's all done, we will have an email sent out to you, and it will give you instructions on how to fund the investment, and you can mark it as funded there. That way we know that funds are coming in, your investment will be included in the next close, and then we'll handle the rest from there. Or we'll make sure that if you're doing this through a non-registered account, that the shares are issued. And if you're doing it through a registered account, we'll make sure that the investment is submitted with either Odyssey or Western Pacific, and that the investment is actually processed for you. So that's a high level of the investment process. Important to note, and a bit of a second part here, is going to be keeping up with your investment once it's actually been processed. So once everything's in, your shares have been issued, and you start receiving any sort of distributions or capital gains, we'll actually reflect that directly back into your platform. So any transactions you can completely keep a track of on the platform. We'll give you a holistic view of the overall portfolio. So we'll show you how much your investment's grown over time, what your current standing is, what your net contributions look like. Under this account right now, there wouldn't actually be any sort of view because this is the first investment being made. But again, the transaction will give you an update once the investment is processed. And then at the end of every year, as well as on a quarterly, whenever you make a new contribution, Atlas One will also send you a quarterly statement. So we'll show you exactly what your account standing looks like, any sort of transactions you made, such as this contribution or any sort of redemptions. And we'll put that all in one sort of document for you to view here as well. So you can keep track of everything, including any sort of updates from the WealthShare team, all through the Atlas One account. So that's a very sort of high level overview of it. I'm not sure, I know we ran through a fair amount of steps here. Again, it usually takes around 5 or 10 minutes overall to go through yourself, but happy to sort of answer any questions from the investor side about either the platform, or I know Natasha can certainly sort of share the mic here and answer any questions about WealthShare itself to make sure that everyone's sort of up to date and knows how to process it.
I think the only thing to kind of maybe talk about, just because we do have quite a few people that this would be kind of the first time they're even ever learning that this is is a real strategy that they can consider. Obviously when you're talking to people and advising people, this probably comes up in conversations, but for the individual who has registered funds or has TFSA but has never kind of gone about this, can you just talk briefly like how you would talk to clients about why this might be something to consider? And obviously we talked about the process, but obviously they can also speak to you to get help with that, I'm assuming.
Certainly, yeah. So between the TFSA and the RSP, as well as some other registered accounts, as some very specific ones may apply to investors. The real one that everyone always talks about is going to be tax efficiency. So between either the extreme tax efficiency of a TFSA, or at very least holding off taxes until they're redeemed like an RSP, it makes sense to put investments into those type of accounts where you want to protect against taxes. Usually those types of investments you want to consider to be ones that could either experience sort of medium to high either capital gains or distributions, because you're trying to protect as most sort of taxes as possible. So when it comes to making investments like these, it really does make sense to put them inside of a TFSA or an RSP, because you'll be able to tax shelter those returns for you. Investments like these, especially private investments, while the upside can be fantastic and will certainly run you through the opportunity as well as the risks that come with it, those opportunities are only great if you can realize those return after taxes. And a lot of the time, private investments is where folks choose to keep those sort of, I'd say, medium to higher risk investments. A second sort of benefit, which a lot of folks don't really think about too much, is once you've made your investment, and let's say that it does do fairly well, and now you want to say, all right, I want to diversify my TFSA, my RSP a bit more. So far as you sell the investment, but keep it inside of your TFSA or RSP, that effectively increases the amount that you're allowed to tax protect in there without having to contribute new funds. I was talking to our CEO, George, about it a couple of days ago. You hear of some investors making these gigantic TFSA accounts because they've managed to very appropriately build their portfolio within a registered account. And this is certainly a great sort of starting point for that.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So the point of the structure that we have, and the point of also the trust company that facilitates, is to ensure that your tax efficiencies are made in place. We're not triggering a tax event. We're not cashing out RSPs or TFSAs. They're staying in a registered type account. So that's huge for you to tax plan with your accountant at a future time.
Yeah. I saw another question come here. What fees are there for investors when investing in WealthShare, including at, say, Odyssey? Okay, so talking about investor fees. So generally speaking, and Natasha, you may want to speak to the WealthShare fees, and I can talk about sort of Atlas One as well as Odyssey. I know from your side there's some management fees, as is typical of these sort of funds, and some early redemption fees. So I'll leave it to you for the early ones, and I can talk about the other parts of the investment.
So, and I don't have it pulled up here, but there's no fee to make an Atlas One account, obviously. There's no fee to invest, but the main difference with investing in this type of structure is compared to if this was a partnership or general partnership, the management usually would take a portion of returns, whatever might be set out. The difference in this type of structure with a REIT or a mutual fund trust is the management charges management fees as an expense to the trust, instead of taking 50-50 profits or something like that you might see in a partnership. So can you pull up the screen that shows the management or our offering fees there?
Yeah, sure. Let me pull it.
Thanks. So when we do our business plan, just like you would do a business plan for any business, when we're analyzing a property, we make sure that we are covering off our fees. So the trust will charge fees to the trust for us to manage it. So there's an acquisition fee, a financing fee, and a management fee. And this will basically help ensure that we can manage it and cover our expenses and time. The big one here that is the share of net income. So you'll see there that there's an 8% preferred return. So preferred returns means those get paid first, and they're preferred. And we don't get any returns in terms of performance until that is met. Now, where we have come in very competitive here is the WealthShare management team will get a 20% share of the net returns basically after that 8% is met. All the other groups out there that we have reviewed this is extremely competitive and much more favorable for you, the investor. So we've tried to really put the investors first, cover our time and energy and efforts in the management fees as well as and then providing some incentive, of course, for performance of how we do with the 20% share of net income. If you want to read every detail of that, that'll also all be covered off in the offering memorandum in detail. It's pretty lengthy and detailed. And then in the declaration of trust, it also goes into great detail about redemption, because redemption is how you exit these types of investments, and every group will have their own redemption strategy and fees. So we really are looking for investors for long term. We are not going to be a high turnover type of group, because we're going to be acquiring long-term buy and hold assets. So we're looking for investors to stay with us, around that 5-year mark or longer. So as you'll see here, there's a sliding scale of kind of redemption fees, and the investors are definitely incentivized with the fees the longer they stay in the trust. In the declaration of trust, that one document Ryan mentioned, this is where all of those are outlined even in more detail than we have here.
Yeah. And I think, an important point to consider when looking through the sort of management fees, when we talk about this sort of target return, that 8 to 12%, that's going to be net of these management fees. So it's not as if when we take into consideration these figures, we've already done the math of how much that 20% would actually take out, how much the 2% management fee would take out, as well as any sort of dealer fees. I know there were a few other parts of the question with regards to Atlas One as well as Odyssey. So Atlas One, for investors, we don't charge anything. You use the platform completely free of charge. In transparency, again, there is the dealer fee, which is we help out with raising funds for WealthShare. If we do that, then we take a percentage of that. Again, 8 to 12% is after those sort of fees.
Yes.
And then Odyssey. So Odyssey has a few fees that they process. One is going to be a recurring or an annual account fee. I believe it's around $125. Again, they will reimburse you for that for the first year if funds are being transferred in from Olympia Trust. Otherwise, it's just $125 every year. And then they have a fee to process investment. So anytime you make a new contribution, I believe the fee is around $65 or rather $75. Typically with private investments, because you're not making a ton of investments all the time, it's not like you're day trading private investments away. Usually these funds end up being a negligible portion of the overall investment. So it is important to consider that typically, as Natasha mentioned, you'll have few sort of redemptions and going in and out. So these fees are quite in line, and I'd say pretty competitive for private investments.
Yeah.
I guess
Ryan,
yeah.
it might also just be worth, because you touched on it a little bit earlier, for somebody who doesn't have an account at Olympia coming to this first time, they want to go to Odyssey. Odyssey, as I understand, has a kind of an online platform. What's kind of the easiest way to set up an Odyssey account?
Yeah. So as George mentioned, Odyssey, the trust company, does have a completely online portal as well. Again, we'll make sure in the follow-up email that investors have links to those. But investors will literally set up an account with Odyssey. So you'll Google Odyssey Trust Company. We'll also send you the link there, and it will get you to sign up for an account. You'll pick the type of account you want, so whether it's a TFSA or an RSP, and then transfer funds over. One way to do it. If you say, you know what, I'd rather Atlas One help out with it, you can just create an account with Atlas One with us and ask us to get the Odyssey account set up. We'll make sure all the proper forms are filled out as well. All the funds are being transferred appropriately, and then we'll guide you as to submitting the investment with WealthShare as well. So whether you want to do it directly yourself or have us sort of help out with getting the funds transferred over and the account created, happy to do it sort of either way.
Perfect. That's it.
I believe that those are the majority of the parts about sort of using the platform. Again, if any sort of questions about the actual fund itself, about how we sort of work with WealthShare or anything specific, happy to help out with those. Whereas the details are certainly in the offering memorandum. Again, it's quite a lengthy document, some of it in a bit of legalese, some of it finances, if you'll call it that. We've already gone through everything, and so we can very sort of clearly answer any questions that come through.
Awesome. Well, I think that covered a lot of it. I mean, the steps are important to know. And then also for any further questions, obviously people can book a direct call with you as well, right, Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. And I know we have a list of everyone that's been able to participate here. So we'll make sure that the link goes out such that you can access Atlas One, you can access the WealthShare offering specific, and we'll make sure our calendar link is in there as well. So you can talk to us directly if you need help with anything.
Oh, let's put the our Atlas One link in the chat, maybe.
Yeah, I have it. I believe I have it pulled up here.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing and I'll get the link.
Perfect. Okay. I think we covered all the questions. There's nothing. Oh, I wasn't on Facebook, so.
All right, let me, just like you, I have plenty of multi-factor authentication set up. So great for safety. It's not so great for switching accounts on a dime.
It's not good for speed of anything. No,
Unfortunately not. But give me a minute here and a bit of tinkering with my phone.
Yeah,
I know
no
we'll go just now.
No problem. So yeah, thank you so much for kind of taking us through that. I think that'll be a really good resource for people. And the important thing too is this information and knowledge applies to just your kind of arsenal of investment tools out there, right? This strategy applies to WealthShare, of course, but also to other investments that you might be looking at. So hopefully that's helpful to go over the steps of using your registered funds. We didn't talk too much about WealthShare specifically today, but our main strategy is that we are acquiring long-term buy and hold multifamily real estate. We're starting here in Alberta, in our backyard, where it makes good sense right now. And we're acquiring properties that are either turnkey or need minimal kind of value add opportunities that are mismanaged and that are kind of easy to right the ship within this first year of acquisition. Due to the uncertainties in the world right now, we personally want to take less risk than more right now, and kind of take the slow and steady wins the race approach with buy and hold real estate, which is why we will want to have people stay with us for a good few years to make it worthwhile for everyone's sake. So but if there's any questions, of course, about WealthShare strategy or any of that stuff, reach out to me or any of the WealthShare team. But any of the questions about process, the OM, the offering memorandum, or anything like that, or any financial advice, make sure you please reach out to Ryan.
Yep. And we've also, I just pasted the offering link here in the chat. So again, I'll make sure everyone that gets an email after, but if you want to go to the offering right now, you can click that link. Importantly, it will make sure that we know that you came directly from the WealthShare team, so we can give you a bit of a personal touch, as well as just making sure that we're aware on our side this was someone that came from WealthShare, and that we can always reach back if necessary.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thanks for your time today, and thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, let us know, but hopefully this was helpful and gives a bit of clarity to the process, even though it is a bit of a cumbersome one. But I think once you kind of get it, then it's set up for you, and you can use it for many things. So thanks everyone for being here, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Great. Thanks everyone.
Take care.